It was the silence that broke me. Not a dramatic fight, not a final slamming door, just silence. And the sound of my own heartbeat, too loud in my ears, as I sat in my parked car on a Tuesday night, watching happy people walk by without me. I used to think love was a promise you kept, no matter how quiet the other end of the line became. I was the girl who stayed, the one who held the space, who kept the light on, who memorized the sound of a text notification like it was a love song. For him, his name was Jake. He had a smile that felt like a summer afternoon and a forgetfulness that felt like winter. I met him in a crowded campus bar during senior year, where he bumped into me and spilled his beer, and instead of an apology, he just laughed. A real, open-throated laugh that made you want to join in. I fell for that laugh. I think I spent the next 3 years trying to hear it again. I made myself available. Isn't that what you do when you love someone? You become a harbor. You wait for their ship. Late night calls? I'm here, I'd whisper, phone pressed to my ear, my own tiredness buried. Last minute plans? I'd cancel dinner with my sister, my book club, my own quiet need for a bath and an early night. Something came up, I'd tell my friends, my voice tight with a lie they all saw through. I was always rearranging my life to fit the jagged, empty spaces of his. He never asked me to. He'd just say, "Hey, you free?" And my heart would leap, and I'd say yes before he finished the question. He wasn't cruel. He was just absent. Present in body sometimes, but his mind was always somewhere else. On his work, his friends, his next big idea. I kept weaving excuses for him, delicate tapestries of hope. He's under a lot of pressure. He's just not good with words. He shows he cares in other ways. I collected crumbs of attention and called it a feast. But love isn't supposed to feel like a constant audition. It's not supposed to be a puzzle where you're the only one trying to force the pieces to fit. The night it all crystallized was ordinary. It was drizzling. The streetlights smeared gold on my wet windshield. I was outside his apartment building, not because he'd invited me, but because he'd said he might be done with work by 9. It was 10:47 p.m. I'd watched 3 couples walk hand in hand under a single umbrella. I'd scrolled my phone until my eyes hurt. My text from 2 hours ago sat there, unread. Just checking in. Here if you want company. A couple stopped right under a lamppost. He pulled her close, kissed her forehead, and she tucked her head into his chest. It was so simple, so effortless. And a question I had been choking back for years finally broke free, clawing its way up my throat. If I disappeared tomorrow, would he even notice? The truth hit me, cold and sharp. It wasn't a thought. It was a physical pain right in the center of my chest. It stole my breath. The answer was a vast, echoing no. He wouldn't. Not for days. Maybe not until he needed something. I didn't cry. I just started the car. The engine sounded different, louder, more decisive. I drove home in that quiet, and I made a choice. Not a dramatic one, a silent one. I stopped chasing. I didn't block his number. I didn't send an angry paragraph. I didn't demand an explanation we'd both regret. I just became unavailable to someone who had never been truly available to me. I let the silence be his to fill. The first week was agony. It was like phantom limb syndrome. My hand would twitch for my phone at 11 p.m. My ears would strain for a buzz that never came. I'd reread our old texts, the few sweet ones, trying to find proof I hadn't imagined it all. The doubt was a loud, taunting voice. You gave up. You didn't try hard enough. You're unreasonable. But then, a strange thing happened. I slept through the night. I woke up and made coffee just for me, and drank it while watching the sunrise, my phone face down on the counter. I said yes to a hiking trip with friends and laughed so hard on the trail that I cried, and I never once checked for a signal. I remembered the music I loved before I started pretending to like his. I bought myself flowers. I sat in the quiet of my own apartment, and instead of it feeling empty, it began to feel like peace. The person I was before Jake, the one who loved old movies and bad karaoke and long solo drives, she started to breathe again. Weeks bled into months. Seasons changed. I was painting my bedroom a color called Seafoam Serenity when his name finally flashed on my screen. Not a text, a call. My heart didn't leap, it just paused. I wiped my hands on my jeans, and I answered. "Hey," he said. His voice was the same. "Long time. You've been quiet." I didn't say anything. I let the silence speak for me. "I was just thinking," he continued, confusion coloring his tone. "Did I do something? You just kind of vanished." And there it was, the confirmation. He wasn't calling with love or with longing or with a realization of what he'd lost. He was calling with confusion, because someone who truly loves you doesn't get confused when you stop carrying the entire relationship on your back. They get concerned, they show up, they fight. A calmness settled over me, warmer than any blanket he'd ever shared. "No, Jake," I said, my voice steady, clear. "You didn't do anything new." The line was quiet. He didn't understand, and for the first time, I was completely okay with him not understanding. My value was no longer a secret for him to decipher. It was a fact I lived with, every single day. I chose myself. And in that choice, I didn't just walk away from him. I walked toward everything I was ever meant to be. The quiet after that call was different. It wasn't the aching, empty silence of waiting. It was solid, full. Like the calm after a storm has finally passed, and you're just standing in the wet grass, breathing air that smells clean and new. I hung up the phone and looked at my paint-smeared hands. I looked at the seafoam green spreading across my wall, a color that felt like a fresh start. And I smiled. It was a small thing at first, just a curve of my lips, but then it grew until it reached my eyes, until I was smiling so wide my cheeks ached. It was the first real, uncomplicated joy I'd felt in years, and it belonged entirely to me. I didn't hate Jake. The strange thing was, I pitied him a little. He was still out there in his world of half-presence and vague intentions, while I was here, in a room I was making my own, with a heart that was finally healing. The months that followed weren't a montage of instant perfection. Some mornings, old habits whispered. I'd see a pickup truck like his and my stomach would clench. I'd hear a song we'd listened to once on a road trip and feel a pang of nostalgia for a feeling that was mostly my own invention. But the pangs grew weaker, farther apart. They were echoes, not earthquakes. I poured the energy I'd spent on decoding his moods into my own life. I took a pottery class and made lopsided, wonderful bowls. I started running, not to be fit for someone, but to feel the pounding of my own heart, the strength in my own legs. I reconnected with friends I'd sidelined, and over thick diner coffee and greasy fries, I apologized. They hugged me and said, "We were just waiting for you to come back." The most profound change was in my breathing. I hadn't even realized I'd been holding my breath for 3 years, bracing for the next disappointment, the next letdown. Now, I breathed deeply. I slept deeply. The peace was a physical thing. Then, about a year after the night in the car, I met Leo. It was so mundane it was almost funny. Not in a bar, not through a dramatic meet-cute. In a hardware store, of all places. I was trying to choose a new faucet for my kitchen sink, utterly confused by the options. He was in the next aisle, looking equally lost, holding two different types of pipe fittings like they were alien artifacts. "I think I'm in over my head," I said aloud, to no one in particular. "Join the club," a voice answered. I turned. He had kind eyes, the sort that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. He wasn't trying to impress me. He was just there, present. "I'm supposed to be fixing a leak, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to flood my entire bathroom." We laughed. We compared our disastrous home repair plans. He asked for my opinion on his fittings. I asked for his thoughts on my faucets. There was no game, no calculation, no checking of phones. We just talked, right there in the bright, fluorescent-lit aisle, surrounded by nuts and bolts and garden hoses. He asked if I wanted to get a coffee after we inevitably bought the wrong things, and I said yes. But this yes felt different. It was light. It was a choice, not a compulsion. Leo showed up, on time, with his full attention. He listened in a way that made me feel heard, not just waited upon. He remembered the things I said. He texted me good morning, and when I replied an hour later because I was busy, he didn't vanish. He just said, "Hope you're having a good day." It was so easy. It felt like coming home to a house where all the lights were already on. One evening, about 3 months in, we were cooking pasta in my kitchen, the one with the seafoam walls and the perfectly good new faucet. The sauce was simmering. A Dean Martin record was playing softly in the background, and we were dancing, just swaying, our socks sliding on the linoleum. He pulled back a little, looked at me, and his expression grew soft, serious. "You know what I love about you?" he said, his voice low. My old instincts flared for a second, a fear of a qualifying statement, a but. "What?" I asked. "You're so whole," he said. "You have this quiet completeness. You're not looking for someone to fill you up. You're just sharing the space." I buried my face in his shoulder so he wouldn't see the tears that sprung to my eyes. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition. He saw me. The me I had fought so hard to find again. That's the thing they don't tell you about choosing yourself. It's not the end of love. It's the only possible beginning for a real one. You stop being a beggar at love's door, hoping for scraps. You become a host in your own life, and you only open the door for guests who respect the house. I don't chase love anymore. I don't have to. I understand now that love isn't something you earn through endurance. It's something that meets you in the middle of the bridge, because you've finally built a strong enough foundation on your own side to walk out onto it. Jake and I never spoke again. I heard through the fragile grapevine of old friends that he moved to another city for a job. I felt nothing. No anger, no wistfulness. Just the gentle closing of a book I'd finished a long time ago. Sometimes, on a quiet evening, Leo and I will be on the couch, his arm around me, my head on his chest. I'll feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat under my ear. I'll feel the solid, peaceful certainty of my own in my chest. And I'll think of that girl in the car in the rain, her hands trembling on the wheel, asking that devastating, beautiful question. She had to disappear so that I could find myself. And in finding myself, I made space for a love that doesn't feel like waiting. A love that feels, simply and overwhelmingly, like staying. The right person won't keep you guessing. The right person will just be there, consistently, softly, surely, making the choice to stay as easy as breathing. And you'll realize you were never meant to chase. You were only ever meant to be found by someone who was worth the wait.